All right, well, let's just get into it, guys. My name is Sabrina Cronin, and I am the co-founder and the managing attorney at Michigan of Genesis Legal Group. And I have with me my two right-hand people that I couldn't have done today without them. To my left and your right is Samantha Sharples. She's an attorney here also in Michigan. And to my right, your left, is Elisha Sambroni, who is very much involved in the development and the creation of these webinars to help present and also bring to you as much knowledge and information as we can. We like to provide as much value to our clients and our friends of the firm because we know that this time in your lives is a difficult one, and we want to just help you along that journey. So with that, we have a short presentation we'd like to show you today. And this is our third webinar that we presented as a Genesis Legal Group. And we are so happy to be partnering with our Arizona team members. And I know that many of you are in Arizona and many of you are in Michigan and others probably across the nation, because we really believe this topic is not only statewide, but it's really globally. We have a global issue of trying to help resolve conflict between co-parents. There are so many split families, and whether it's a family that has been through a divorce or just a custody battle or both, we know that it is very difficult to navigate these waters, especially if you've never done that before and your children are always watching. And so the last seminar we presented was co-parenting, dealing with narcissistic tendencies of the other co-parent. And this is such a popular topic, so we wanted to bring forth some more information and more strategies to help you not only navigate dealing with the co-parent who has narcissistic tendencies, but also while you're dealing with them, you're also going through litigation. And if you're, whether it's a custody dispute or divorce or both, it's very difficult to know how to act, not only in court, but also in your home, when you're with your kids, when you're dealing with the other co-parent on a daily basis. And so there are a lot of concerns and questions that arise when dealing with this. And oftentimes they're not legal questions, they're really more pragmatic and what's the best approach to do certain things. And I'd like to remind everyone today that this is really a safe space for everybody. So I ask each and every one of you to agree, and hopefully you can put it in the chat that you all agree to keep all this information confidential, that this is a private and safe space for each and every one of you. And please just type in that you agree to those terms and that we're going to keep it very friendly and amicable. And also, I also want you to know that this is not a space to ask legal questions. We are not your attorney in this moment. We are really more of your mentor and your consultant when it comes to these legal issues dealing with parents and co-parenting in your children. So when I say legal issues, I can't get into the specifics of your legal case. So please be mindful of that. I don't want to take too much time dealing with the really the nuts and bolts of your legal matter. And if you do have a question relative to your legal matter, please know that we will respond and we will set you up with an attorney in your area. And as a courtesy to you for attending, it will be a free consultation. So if you do need that specific legal advice, please let us know, and we will definitely be sure to set you up with an attorney in your area to answer those specific legal questions. I hope you all understand that. So without further ado, let's get into the slideshow. And thank you all for agreeing to the terms today. I really appreciate that. And I know each and every one of you do too. So the slideshow that we've presented today is really just about how to handle the day-to-day struggles while litigating your case. And we're going to do one slide per screen, but we're trying to get there for you.
Never a dull moment. Move the video window, Sam.
Yeah.
I'm trying to. There we go.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
There we go. Okay. So again, I'm Sabrina Cronin, and I'm very, very pleased and honored to bring this to you today. So we often have so many questions regarding how do we deal with this? My soon-to-be co-parent is a real jerk, but I have to be nice to him, and yet we have to be in court and battle over all these issues that he's not willing or she's not willing to agree. So it's a tough space that you're in for this period of time. And sometimes, unfortunately, it lasts well beyond the conclusion of your legal matter. So with that, here's just a brief overview of what we're going to be talking about today. Your personal issues, obviously dealing with these issues involving your children, the co-parents. And I know each and every one of you have mutual friends, sometimes more than just family members in common, but obviously friends, and friends sometimes pick sides. And I want to help you also navigate the waters with your attorney and dealing with certain evidence and whether you should present something or not. And then clearly the courtroom, because that's really the most, that's the area that people have the most difficulty dealing, and it's the most stressful, and it can cause a lot of anxiety within you. And I just want to help you understand what's all involved with that. So obviously, like we said, dealing with the co-parent is not only difficult, it can be extremely stressful, especially with high emotions. So when you're unable to see eye to eye, it's so critical that you do not bring that before the children. Children are feeling enough of the stress and strife. And believe it or not, even if you don't express yourself in front of them, even if you don't argue in front of them, they feel the energy between you two. They feel the tension. And so try always to be mindful of how you are being in front of your children, but not only in front of your children, but also your family, mutual friends, and even the judge. Sometimes people think that they want to arm themselves with, being tough or be strong, and it comes across sometimes in the not, and not such a great manner. You lash out, and sometimes you want to now all of a sudden find your voice. And sometimes it's the 180-degree difference. If you've been quiet and taken it all your entire length of your marriage or your union with the co-parent, and then all of a sudden things boil over and you want to show everybody how strong and tough you are, well, it's not always the best venue to do that in front of the judge or even in front of your lawyer or the other co-parent. You should realize that perception is such an important part of this quote unquote game of litigation. And so you always want to be perceived as the one really in control of your emotions. And so it's best to do that really on your own, go within and do what you need to do to take care of yourself during this entire litigation. And I know it's good. That's a real deep well of not only information, but topic. So if you have any questions regarding that, please reach out, and I'm happy to go through that with you on a more personalized basis. So here's just a little bit about what we were referring to with respect to personal. Everything starts from you. Everything starts from within you. Whether you believe it or not, or whether you want to believe it or not, the relationship dynamic you have with your co-parent, it's not all their fault, right? So you have to look within, but also you're not a superhero either. It's the same adage that when you're flying a plane, in order to protect the ones you love, you have to first take care of yourself. You have to first put on that oxygen mask yourself. So once you do those things, nourish yourself, do what you need to do to be the strong, confident, competent person that you are, then you can better able to handle the situation, take care of your children, and be that person to them, be the one that they look up to. So focus on the things that you can control. Those are your emotions, your reactions. Try to be very mindful of not allowing that other person to really push your buttons. Go within, really take some deep breaths, walk away. Don't engage in high adversarial situations in front of your children, especially during this litigation process. That's not the best way to handle things. It's also not a good idea to bottle your emotions up. So really find an outlet that you feel safe and secure to really work on the stress of this process. It is a very stressful time, and you need someone and you need an outlet to rely on. But don't let that outlet or that other someone be your children, or even, mutual family members, or even mutual friends, because whether you know it or not, it's stressful for them too. They didn't ask for this divorce either. And whether you've been married or together in a union for 1 year or 20 years, it's still stressful, because no one wants to be brought into your personal family dynamic. So try your best to leave it to the professionals, whether it's a counselor, a therapist, or someone with your church or synagogue, or someone that you feel safe with. Try not to expose all of this to someone, just anyone who will listen, because it will not serve you and it will not serve your children in the long run. And that's why externally we ask that you really let your old stories go to the best of your ability. Everyone in the beginning kind of wants to be that victim. They want to feel victimized only because it maybe validates their position. But don't wallow in your self-pity for too long, because it really will not serve you and it will not serve your children. And just to give you a little bit of a guideline with respect to your kids, you have to be the holder of the secrets as you navigate through this co-parenting journey with them. And it's super important that you understand what it is to express to them and how to express things to them in an age-appropriate way. So we've set forth a little bit of guidelines for you to understand the ages of your kids. And I know you know your kids better than anyone, but here's just a little bit of some guidelines. So under the ages of 6, less is more with them. Focus on things that won't change. Try not to talk about what will change, because they can't really grasp their little minds around that. All they know is that, in their short little lives, they've known this union to be together. So they're not as fraught with fear about the future, because they haven't had as much history with the two of you as someone, let's say, who's a teenager. Teenagers have a much more difficult time because they've had longer to be with this union than, say, someone who is much younger in age. So try not to be too detailed with your younger children. It's always best to always take the high road. Don't disparage, and really focus on the fact that you will still be loved by both of us. We are here for you, and really don't bring in the negative to any of this, really, with any of your children. Ages 7 to 12, those preteen years, they're going through a lot also, the changing hormones the older they get. They are, trying to figure out their identity and where they fit in all of this. By this time, their subconscious programming has really been set in, so their personalities have really been established. But you can help also navigate their personalities during this crucial time period as well. So have age-appropriate conversations. If they ask questions, and that goes for ages 6 and under as well, don't lie, don't avoid the questions, but answer them in an age-appropriate way. Don't give them all the details that you would, say, an adult, but make sure that they feel heard, that they feel understood, that you're being patient with them. Make sure also that you give them plenty of time and space to process what's going on. Sometimes, it's best as a parent to just be that potted plant in the room. I know, especially with teenagers, they don't really talk a lot, they don't express a lot, but just being there, being that presence for them is more than really trying to have a talk with them if they're not really willing or ready or able to talk. So again, going to the teenage years, don't disparage the other parent. They don't want to hear it. They will really blame you then in the long run. The more negative you are, it sometimes backfires. So this is not their decision. Remind them that this was not their decision. Remind them that it was not their fault. Remind them that you still love them, that their other parent loves them. They did nothing wrong. That is extremely crucial and critical for children to understand, because no matter what we say, they will still blame themselves. So it's crucial and critical that you help them to understand that none of this is their fault, and that you are as joyful to be around them as you always were, and you become more and more peaceful and fulfilled in their presence. And as they see that transformation, as they see you happy and more evolved, then they will be more happy and evolved. With children, it's not what you say, it's how you are and it's how you act that really matters. And it is so crucial to be living your best life. Always try to move forward in a positive direction, because they will pick up on that. And they too then will learn how to live those values based upon your living those values. And here's some do's and don'ts for you dealing with the co-parent. And I also want to let you know that if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll also have a question and answer period at the end. So I don't know if we have any questions for now or at this point in our
Not
chat,
quite yet.
but feel free to do that, because I know I'm throwing a lot of information toward you. It's very important that you learn how to stand up for yourself and your children in a manner in which serves you. I know earlier in our discussion, I talked about how when someone starts feeling more and more empowered, they almost go from 0 to 180. And really the more, the better way to behave is really more of that 90-degree marker. And you'll find that sometimes there's a lot of fluctuation when you're learning how to navigate. Sometimes you can blow things up, blow off the handle. And really, you always kind of want to be more in that neutral territory. Because when you are truly empowered within yourself and you have that confidence and that knowing that you are doing everything in your power to do what's in the best interest of your children, no matter what the other co-parent does, it will not sway you. It will not deter you. It will not, force you off of your rock. You have to be that solid rock that can bend sometimes like a willow tree or a bamboo tree, but you're so solidly planted that nothing will throw you or thwart you off of that position. So make sure you stand up for yourself in a peaceful, calm way for your children and your boundaries. Do not let negative talk about the co-parent or your situation thwart you. Do not encourage negative talk. Do not encourage that disparagement. I know it's so easy to get involved in all the gossip. It's so easy to talk about what they're doing or what they should be doing, what they're not doing. And especially with family members or your friends or anyone who will listen, but it's really important to learn that from this point forward, anything you keep repeating, anything you keep talking about will continue. So if you really want to move your life forward, try to let all that go. Try to let those things that don't serve you go. And I know it's difficult as you're healing and as you're trying to move on, but trust me when I tell you, you will heal much faster if you start to tell yourself different stories. You can express yourself to those trusted counselors, your attorney. In fact, you need to get it off of your chest, and your attorney really needs to know the entire story. But his family member doesn't need to know the whole story, or her parents don't need to know how they wronged you. Your children don't need to know how they wronged you. You already know. You have that knowing within you. Share that with your lawyer, share that with your counselors, and then move on from that. Learn how to better your life, telling yourself different stories, and that you are going to be different. You are more improved. You've learned from these mistakes. you're not going to be attracted to that again. And therefore your children will be better and more positive as a result of your positivity. So along the lines of sharing things with your lawyer should be the one doing the fighting for you, not you. You have to maintain that amicable relationship on a day-to-day basis because your children are always watching. Do not allow your co-parent to trap you into fighting with them over issues that your lawyer should be handling. And going to the last line, if there's something that you truly feel like you can negotiate with the co-parent, and I know that a lot of times it's easier to talk about things with the co-parent, especially in the middle of litigation, when you don't want to increase your legal bill. I get it. You know, we're being mindful of your dollars and the value of us representing you, but do not allow anything to sabotage the negotiations that your lawyer has already done or is trying to do. If you want to negotiate something outside the presence of your lawyer, make sure you tell your lawyer what it is that you're talking to the co-parent about so as not to undermine what they're trying to do for you. Because once you agree to something with the other co-parent, it is very difficult for the lawyer then to help get you more or to change what you've already done. If there is something that you've agreed upon, it is extremely difficult at best to go back and renegotiate. So be very, very, very certain that you feel comfortable, you feel safe, and you feel strong negotiating with the co-parent, and then express that to your lawyer. If you don't, leave it to your lawyer. That's why you hired a lawyer. You know, there's that saying that, you know, only a fool hires himself, only a fool represents himself, or whatever that saying is, the client, you know, a fool has the client for himself. But don't do something that you will regret later, okay? And don't let the other co-parent bully you into that. That's why you have a strong lawyer. And if you feel bullied in that moment, all you have to say is, you know what, I really don't want to talk about this right now. I need to get the kids to practice or whatever. Say, I'll have my lawyer contact your lawyer, but thank you so much. Period. Period. Be kind. You don't have to be nasty about it. Just say, I'll have my lawyer handle this. Thank you. Period. And that's the neutral tone that I'm talking about in terms of communicating with the other co-parent. Don't respond to anything in a rude or belittling way. Whenever you send text messages or emails, always know that those are text messages and those are emails that can and will be produced down the road in court or with a friend of the court. Just pretend like you're always under that microscope, because you are. And I've seen this time and time again. Let's just say the other co-parent hasn't been involved in the children's lives, and all of a sudden during the custody battle, they now all of a sudden are making a presence because they want to look good for the court. You cannot then try to disparage them to themselves, to that other person in a text message, or, you know, belittle them or berate them in an email. Tell your lawyer how their behavior is now all of a sudden changed because they don't want to pay child support. Tell your lawyer that it's disingenuous at best. Tell your lawyer that the behavior is not how it's been for the majority of your children's lives. Don't try to assert that position to the other person. Just take notes, keep a journal, keep a calendar. And sometimes those things are not always admissible in court, but they will help you to remember to be able to tell your lawyer the real picture of what's been going on. I know we talked a little bit about this as well. We all have mutual friends, especially if you've been with someone for a really long time. You have friends that you've done things with, your children, you've gone on trips with. If there are friends, your personal friends or family members whom you can trust, that you know will not divulge anything to anyone that will have repercussions later, or that will, you know, influence anything with your case or even with your kids or won't gossip about you. You know, you'd be surprised how many times people tell a friend and then it gets to the kids at school, the children of those friends, and then it gets to the children of the divorcing family. And it hurts the children at a very, very deep level. So always be mindful that what you're saying and how you're being, not only to your friends, but other family members, really can impact your kids. So it's important that you lean on your support system, but it's also important that you maintain healthy boundaries. Try not to drag your friends into it because, like we talked about earlier, they didn't ask for this, you know, they didn't want to be a part of your divorce. Everybody has their own issues to deal with in their lives. Everyone has their own crosses to bear in this lifetime. People have their own struggles. So unless there's someone with whom you really can confide or that you really trust, try to be mindful of that and keep your discussions to a minimum. We don't want your children to overhear. We don't want your kids to hear it through their friends at school. So I'm not saying you have to go through this alone, but really be very careful with whom you trust, because sometimes it will also work against you in your divorce. And if you end up going to trial or going to a mediation or arbitration and they call on these witnesses, you always want to make sure that what you're doing is always for the best interest of your children. And this goes true with your co-parents' friends. If you have, if you know that there's a friend of the co-parent that you've been friends with before, but you know, they're really more friends with the other parent, don't ask them to pick sides, you know, don't to put them in an awkward situation. Always take the high road. And I know it's difficult to do that always. And you know, especially if you've been wronged, especially if you've been hurt, especially if you've been abused in some way. But again, this is your life and you need to really act and show by example to your children the person that you want them ultimately to be when they get older. And when in doubt, just don't say anything. When in doubt, express yourself to those that you can trust, those trusted professionals. Here we go with the same topic. And this is not only true for the course and during the tenure of your litigation, it's also well after. You know, I know there are family members that are very hurt throughout the divorce process. Parents, you know, step parents, step children. It's a very, very sensitive topic. And while it's important to be honest, it's also important to remember that you need to feel comfortable. This is your life. This is your case. This is your matter. These are your children. So people may pry, people may want to know, people may want to gossip. Let them know what's happening, but only to the extent that you feel comfortable. When stepchildren are involved, you know, depending on the length of your union, it's important that everyone is included in these discussions, and they are just as affected as your own children sometimes, and sometimes even more so. So you and your co-parent really need to discuss what it's going to look like, not only during the divorce, but also after the divorce. If you've been involved in your stepchildren's lives for a very long time and you want to continue after, then you need to assure them and reassure them that you are still going to be a valid and very significant part of their life, if that's what you want. You have to get clear on what it is you want before you can talk about it with these very important family members. Even the in-laws, if there are people in your life that you've become very close with and friendly with, and they're family to you, you can talk to them, and many times they feel the same and they want you in their life for a long time too. You know, but you also have to be mindful that, you know, sometimes blood is thicker than water. Sometimes they will show sides and favorites, even though they know that, let's just say, their son or daughter did you wrong, they're still their son or daughter. So you have to be very careful with what you say, how you say it, maintain healthy boundaries. And just picture yourself in their shoes. Like if this were your children going through a divorce and you got really close to your children's, significant other, how would you be? So be very mindful of that and really try to keep things to yourself. I always say it's important to learn how to be your best counsel, learn how to be there for yourself. Try not to look outside yourself for that validation, because that's when we get into trouble. When we're seeking validation from their family members or their friends, you rarely, if ever, get the answer that you want. And if it's only in the moment, it will then probably work against you, whether it's with your co-parent or with other members of the family. So just watch your actions. We don't want you to come across as being sneaky or manipulative in any way. So really try to be mindful of the totality of the situation, especially with respect to your kids. Does anyone have any questions at this point?
Yes.
Yeah.
We do have a few questions. Let's recap up to this point. The first question that we had is from Mary. And she wants to know if she should try to negotiate outside of court if she feels that she has favorable things in the agreement. So she said she's afraid to bring him to court. She said it's kind of working as long as she's careful and she lets him do what he wants. She said she has her kiddo 95% of the time, and her agreement is very vague and 50-50. There are so many things that are not covered. Should she try to negotiate outside of court?
So, Mary, that's a very good question, and a lot of people ask that. If you have your child 95% of the time and it's working for you, then my suggestion is not to poke the bear. Keep a record of how long this is going. Keep a journal of what's happening, even though your agreement is vague and it calls for joint custody, but you are having your child the majority of the time. Over time, that really will work in your favor. Let's just say 3 or 5 years down the road, he takes you to court. You have the journal, you have the agreement to say, look, I've had our child the majority of the time this whole time. And let's just say down the road, money is an issue and you need more child support. Well, if it's working for you now, I always say, pick your battles. Sometimes if you want to bring the co-parent to court because you need more money, but you're getting all this extra time, if you don't need that money, I would not bring that person back to court, because then you're going to get less time. You're going to get what he agreed or she agreed to in that agreement. So if you like the majority of the parenting time and you want the 95% still, then keep it as is. But make sure you keep a journal so that okay, for the last 5 years, I've had our child 95% of the time. I have not been getting paid for it. So then, and only then, you have the history and the standing and the confidence to be able to bring it back to court and say, look, I wasn't paid for all this time, but I have them 95% of the time. But even then still, so in Michigan, you can only get child support changes from the date you filed your motion. So it's not going to go back. It's not going to be retroactive for those 5 years. But if it's okay with you, then I would just say leave it alone. You don't want to poke that bear.
Great. Second question is from Kimberly in relation to the upcoming slide. She said, what if I don't feel my lawyer is fighting for me?
So you need to be very expressive about your expectations to your lawyer. And I want to get into this slide right now too. So it's very important that you find a lawyer that shares your values and vision for the case. Oftentimes, lawyers can be extremely aggressive, and you don't want that. Or you want them to only be aggressive for things that matter to you. Or you only want to bring it to that next level if the other side is forcing you to. You have to realize that your lawyer is a person, they have their own personality and they have their own style. So it's important that you choose your lawyer just like you would choose any other significant, professional in your life. Go to 2 or 3 different consultations, make sure you feel comfortable, make sure you feel safe. And if you don't feel safe expressing yourself to your lawyer because you're too intimidated, well, that's not good either. You want to make sure you feel comfortable expressing yourself to them, that they know how you want this case to go. They know what you want. And then your lawyer will be able to say, okay, I think I can get this for you and this for you, but this is a little bit, too out of the ballpark, or this is not a legal conclusion, or this is not something that this judge will grant you. So it's important that your lawyer not only, know the law in your particular state and even in the county in which you have your divorce proceeding or your custody proceeding, but that B, you feel comfortable talking to them and see it's someone that that you can trust, that you can afford. All of these things kind of go into it. It's like picking a doctor for a very significant surgery. It's important that you feel safe, that you feel heard, that they know what you want, and that the professionalism is there, that their experience and their reputation are good. So it's extremely important, because if you don't find a good lawyer, a good fit, some of these orders of the court have very serious and lifelong consequences. Depending on the age of your children, it truly is lifelong. There are many, many, many years that you're going to have to deal with the parent of your children, depending on the age of your children. So a lot of frustration can go into it, and your lawyer is there to help offset some of the stress and the anxiety and the frustration, and do your fighting for you in a manner that resonates with your personality. That's so important. Do we get to all the questions
No,
so
we
far?
do have some more if we have
Yeah,
time.
yeah, we have time.
Okay. So going off of one of our previous slides, how would you suggest handling exes talking to exes? This question comes from JC, and they mean specifically husband's ex talking to stepmom's exes.
During the litigation or just in general? Exes talking to exes. So we cannot control what other people do. All we can control is our reaction to it. Being silent and just letting them talk, but yet kids get in the middle. I guess I don't understand how exes are talking to exes. If your children are in the middle and you know that your children are in the middle, you should try to sit down with your kids, again, in an age appropriate way, and ask them how they are being affected by the gossip that is occurring. Because your only concern at this point should be your children's well-being. Their discussion of you is really none of your business. You know who you are, you know your value, or you should. You don't need validation from them. You don't need them to approve of your behavior. They're your ex, they're your rearview mirror. You're moving forward, you're moving onward and upward, or you should be. The more you dwell on the past, the more you dwell on the negative story and the negative narrative that you keep telling yourself, the more it will happen. So start telling yourself, oh, everything is fine. Everything is fine. The more you dwell on that situation, the more it brings it into your awareness and in your focus, and the more it will occur, the more it will be relevant in your day-to-day life. If you let it go, and if you just focus on a better story about the situation, my children are happy and healthy, everything is going well for us, everything that anyone is talking about us is fine, it's perfect. Be a little delulu for a while. I mean, that's truly, in a way, you have to do that in order to get past it. The more you dwell on the negative, the more the negative will occur.
Great. Next question comes from, excuse my pronunciation, I wanna say it's Senya. How do I handle my ex-husband when he is emotionally abusing our son, who is now 14, he was 6 when we divorced, and my son now has anxiety issues. He knows he cannot get to me anymore on a personal level, so now he uses our son to try and hurt me.
So unfortunately, that's a very common occurrence, especially with narcissistic personalities. And a lot of this will depend on how much time your son has with his dad. So the older that children get, the more choice they have in terms of the parent that they end up staying with. Even if there's a parenting time order that says, 50-50, sometimes the older that the children get, the more the children get, the more they have their own say. It's very difficult to pick up a grown, person and move them if they're driving on their own, if they're able to, go where they are. You just physically can't. But when your son is now experiencing, issues and being traumatized because of how your ex-husband is treating him, my recommendation is to talk with your son, see if he will get into any kind of counseling or therapy with someone who is familiar with dealing with the personality type of your ex-husband. And it's important that he has an outlet, that your son has an outlet to understand what he's going through, so that he knows he's not in the wrong, or that he's not strange for feeling these ways, or this anxious or anxiety that is being provoked within him. It's not his fault, but he needs to learn how to cope. So he needs to learn coping mechanisms, because it's unfortunate that he's being raised by a father with these tendencies, but the benefit is he'll know how to deal with other people in his life as he gets older with those tendencies, as long as he learns the tools necessary to deal with it. We often have narcissistic bosses or narcissistic, friends or employees or other people in your life. And I know he's only 14 now, but he's at the age where he can start developing those tools. So, and you're talking to him, having a parent who is stable and secure, he will then start feeling stable and secure. A child only needs one parent with that stable environment to have that in them. There are many studies that show that children do well with that stable environment with one household. And oftentimes that household, that feeling is enough to get them through the tensions and the anxiety from the other household, even if it's a short time period or a long time period. But the older they get, hopefully, the less that they will be exposed to that.
I think we're ready for the next slide.
Yes. There we go. So some of you might be wondering what type of evidence is important for your trial or your case. Many divorces or custody battles don't end up in trial. Many of them end up in mediation or some alternative dispute resolution outside of the courtroom. But it's still very important that you start collecting all this information for your attorney, to have them understand the totality of the circumstance of your case, whether it's even before you hire a lawyer or even through the case. It's very helpful for your lawyer to know all this information. Financial documents are extremely important to understand the financial makeup of your union and what it is that you might need, whether it's in child support or alimony or the distribution of your marital estate. It's extremely important. And if the other side is blocking that information throughout the course of the litigation, then at least you know what they may or may not have. So your lawyer then can start subpoenaing those records. So that's really important for the financial information. Photos, videos, audio. If you have any type of information respecting how the other parent is treating your children, how they're treating you, whether it's an abusive household or not, whether they are emotionally or physically abusive. It's important that that information be memorialized somehow, whether it's in a journal, whether it's a photo, whether it's a video. If there is a police report, if there is a report of any type of abuse, it's important that that information be saved for your lawyer. If there is any confusion with respect to what's admissible in court, your lawyer in that particular state will be able to tell you what's admissible. If there is a recording that you think might serve you, then keep it. I know Michigan is a one-party recording state, meaning the person recording the audio or video has to be present during that conversation. It is illegal to record something that you are not a party of, or you're not a party to. Let's just say you want to set up a surveillance and you're not even anywhere in the room or the vicinity. That's not allowed. That's not admissible. And sometimes that can get you into trouble criminally. So you have to be very, very mindful of what recording you're doing, how you're doing it. Same with photos or videos. So if in doubt, ask your attorney and they will be able to help you along that way. Sometimes we have clients where they want to record every little thing, the videos, every little thing, and they're videotaping every little thing, and they're the ones instigating the dynamic. They're the ones inflaming and inflating the issue. That will not serve you at all. And recording that is not a very good idea. You think you're doing the right thing, you think you might be helping your situation or your child's, but if you are the one instigating and inflaming and also then recording, or you're feeding your children with information, or you are prompting them, that does not look good. That will never go over well with any judge, with any friend of the court, or any mediator. You want to make sure what you're recording is legitimate and only for the purpose of exposing something that the other party is doing that is really harmful to you or your children. Oftentimes too, people want to know if they can bring forth a counselor, a teacher, other professionals. Yes, other testimony is very crucial, especially if it's a very high conflict custody battle. Those things are very important, and your lawyer can help walk through that with you, and you can definitely help bolster your case if you know that, let's just say, your child is having a really, really hard time in school because of certain things that the co-parent is doing to them while at their house. And they're expressing that to the parent, to the counselor or to the teacher. But rarely will counselors or teachers get involved without a subpoena or without some sort of HIPAA release, because their license will be at stake. And sometimes you get into difficulty because the other parent will not grant permission for that. So make sure you talk to your lawyer about ways that that evidence can be brought forward, especially if you know your child's safety is at risk or their well-being is at risk. It's very important to get as much information as possible. And then here we go with communications. Oftentimes, communications are hearsay, but if it's something that the other party said, especially if I know from Michigan, the other party's statements it's not considered hearsay, it's admission by a party opponent. But certain things are hearsay and not admissible. So you always want to make sure that your lawyer knows the things that are being said on social media. Sometimes the other side will disparage you or the family situation, and that will not serve them well in the long run. If a court finds out about it, they will not be happy. Trust me on that. So let them disparage all they want. I know it's hurtful, but call the attention to your lawyer about it as soon as possible to nip that in the bud, to have them cease and desist that behavior, and to make sure your children and your well-being are protected. It really does not serve anyone well to keep the disparagement in the public eye, or really through emails or letters. It's really how you want to behave and the person you want to be. That's really important to show your children. but make sure any bad behavior by the other side is documented. And
Stop asking me about the Tesla. Who's this dickhead? What do you think about the Roadster Tesla? What do you think about the Roadster Tesla? What,
oh,
what do you
that's
think about the Roadster? You try. No one gives about the Roadster Tesla. Like car.
someone's
Car.
I think
Fucking
someone is
I don't like electric.
hijacking our
Anyone who
webinar.
buys a Tesla isn't a real man. Any
So sorry, guys. That was pretty funny. But anyway, so I hope you all understood what I was just trying to say there. And we're gonna go moving on to the next slide. So if you all have any questions at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think it's in the way of the, what happened? It's because of the bar, it's not moving. There we go. And here's last but not least, the courtroom. So we try not to get to the courtroom because it means that your case has really taken a turn, that you two cannot resolve your differences, that there is no compromise. And it's really the most daunting aspect of any divorce or custody proceeding. And it's usually very adversarial. Most judges don't like it when a custody battle gets to their courtroom. Most clients don't like it. But if you're not willing to budge on anything, then it will certainly end up in the courtroom. Or if the other side is just pushing you and pushing you and pushing you, sometimes it's necessary to try your case. So when I say try your case, I mean, you've made it all through litigation, all through the discovery process. You tried to settle at mediation, you tried to settle with the other side, and you just don't want to be bullied anymore into submission. And that's fine. Make sure your lawyer has prepared your case to the point where they are rock solid to take it to trial. That means gathering all the witnesses, knowing all the answers to interrogatories, making sure all the financial documents are set. But then is your job. Your job is to be as confident as possible and manage yourself, manage your decorum, manage your expectations, look the part, act respectfully, and always defer to your lawyer if you're not sure about something. Always ask questions if you're unsure. You are allowed to sit in that trial the entire time because you are a party, you are a litigant to your case. So make sure you take notes, make sure you understand the case fully, make sure you understand the issues, make sure you know the expectations, and make sure your lawyer understands your expectations.
You're broke. You're
Because-
fucking poor. You can get rotisserie chicken for $5. Boom.
Sorry about that, guys. I don't know who keeps hijacking our webinar, but so that's really important that you understand what goes into it, the risks of going to court, the risks of having a judge determine your fate sometimes exceeds the knowing of what you can compromise. And a lot of times people don't appreciate that, but I always say a good settlement is one in which neither side is truly happy, but you can live with it. That's a good settlement. So if you can achieve that outside a trial where a judge determines your fate, a judge who doesn't a judge who doesn't know much about your case. But it's really important that happens. So now we're ready for some more questions. I'm happy to answer anything. We have a few minutes left.
So I will preface by saying some of these questions are pretty lengthy and pretty specific. Maybe we can get with you one-on-one, but we'll try and get as many in here as we can.
We definitely will get a one-on-one, and we're going to be sending you the, did you send that to them yet? Can we send them the survey? So I would like each and every one of you, if you don't mind, taking some time to answer some questions, because we really are trying to make this as helpful for you as possible. So if I would really like it if you could answer these questions, help us to help you. Please provide us some other topics you'd like us to bring to you. We're so far doing these every other month. If you'd like to see these more often, we can do them more frequently for you. We really just want to make this as helpful for you as possible, because this is a difficult time and we want to better your life, not only for the course of your divorce or the custody battle, but really for the lifetime of your children and you and your family unit. Because while your family is going to be a little changed, it's not always going to look the same. It's still a family. This is your family. This is your life. And we want to help you live the best life that you possibly can. Not only, again, not only through this divorce and custody battle, but forever, for a lifetime. So please let us help you. Please tell us what you'd like to hear about, what you'd like to learn about, and we want to bring forward that information to you. I'm also hopeful that you will send in a review for us. Let us know how we did today, because again, it only helps us to know how we can better serve you in the future. So if you don't mind taking the time for that, we would really be grateful. And we're going to be sending a follow-up email to all of these attendees to help you to give you the slideshow as a courtesy. Also give you some of these answers and questions that came to us before the webinar. We were able to prepare some answers to the common questions that we've received. So you'll be getting that. You'll also be getting another copy of the survey and a link to the review. But in addition to that, if you want to respond to that email with a request for a consultation to answer your specific questions, that way we know we can get you on our calendar for the lawyers in Arizona and in Michigan. And we're very happy to do that for you. And again, as a courtesy to those attending today, we are happy to set forth that complimentary consultation for you. So when you reply with your survey answer and your review, or the question for your specific matter, please, put in the information section of that email that you're attendee, and this is a complimentary consultation. So we definitely want to provide that to you, and as a thank you for not only filling out the survey and filling out the review, but also for attending today. Do we have any other questions that we can?
Yeah, they're all over the internet because I'm a bad boy.
Goodness.
You need to be more misogynistic.
Get rid
This
of
woman
that.
just spilled my coffee.
I am very, very, very sorry that this is happening. I don't know why someone keeps hijacking our webinar. So for that, I apologize. We will definitely work on that for the next time.
So next question comes from Mary. How to go about new girlfriend being brought in to the relationship and to the family?
Well, whenever we add a third party, whether it's your girlfriend or the girlfriend of the other parent, it's always a little bit challenging. But I think children, depending on their ages, really, they take your cue for that. The more at peace you are with any situation, whether it's bringing another person in the mix or whether it's dealing with a stressful situation in your life, the more at peace you are, the more at peace your children will feel. They pick up on your vibe, they pick up on your energy, and if you are stressed about it, they will be stressed. If you're, no big deal about it, they'll be no big deal. It's kind of like there's a story, when your children are really, really, really little and they fall and they look to you for a reaction, like, are they supposed to cry, or are they going, is everything gonna be okay? They look to you to know whether they should cry or whether they're gonna be okay. Well, if you're all nervous and anxious and oh, are you okay? Are you okay? Then they'll cry. Of course, we want to make sure they're nurtured and they're nourished and they're protected. But once you know they're okay and you act that they're okay, they'll be okay. Once you're okay, they'll be okay. It's like the saying that I said earlier, when you pull down that oxygen mask first to take care of yourself, and then you take care of them, they'll be okay. So the more confident and comfortable you feel with any given situation, the more you can express that to them, and then they will feel safe and secure and fulfilled, knowing that everything is good in their world. Mom's okay, dad's okay, it's all good.
The next question came from Peter. He said, I feel my daughter's behavior shows signs of alienation. How do I handle the hurt from seeing the child that loved me before to the one that now displeases me?
Alienation is a very common occurrence among co-parenting. And oftentimes the other parent will start getting jabs in, or will leak things to the child, and then the child gets confused. They don't know who to trust. They will trust the one parent telling them stories or making up lies or saying things that are not appropriate, and that will come out and hurt the other parent who's really minding their own business, trying to be the best parent they can be. If it's something that needs to be brought to the attention of your lawyer, then I would recommend you doing it. Depending on the age of the child, if it's something that you can talk with your child about, my recommendation would be to do that. A lot of times also alienation occurs when there is a step mom or dad in the mix, and that step parent sometimes alienates against the other parent. We see that a lot, and that's a very common occurrence as well. You need to nip that in the bud as soon as you know what's going on, because you don't want to set a precedent of it happening too long. And if you we always say to try to rise above it and to be the better person, but there comes a point when you don't want to be the punching bag too long, and you don't want to be the person taking it all the time, because a bully will continue to bully you until you punch back. And we can punch back in a number of ways. We could punch back with hiring our lawyer to get them to do the fighting for us, or just asserting yourself in an email in a very professional way that this will not be tolerated. We've had a case where the step parent was withholding all this information from the school to the actual parent, and the parent let it go on for a long time before pushing back. You want to make sure you nip it in the bud as soon as you know, but in a professional, mature way, so as not to make you look bad either.
Next question comes from Sonia. She wants to know, we have to use our family wizard to communicate. This was court ordered during our divorce proceeding. Would these conversations be admissible in a Michigan court?
Yes, and that's why our family wizard is used, because it's used. Our family wizard, for those of you who don't know, it's an email application that allows your attorney and or the courts, friend of the court, to have access to it. That's the very reason why we use that to protect the case. And it really is there to monitor the tone, the tonality, the language used. And sometimes language also is filtered. So you can't use swear words, you can't use disparagement. So it's a really good process. It costs money, but we find that it's a very effective tool, especially in high conflict situations. I think we have time for one more. I know someone's in the waiting room. I don't know if that's one of the ones that we.
I don't know, I'm nervous.
We have time for one more question, and then from that, please, I encourage each and every one of you to respond to the survey, and also to please fill out a review if you would be so kind to do that. And we would definitely be happy to meet with you if you have specific questions that we haven't been able to answer at this point.
Okay. So the last question that we're going to take today comes from Mary. What are some key must-haves in the custody agreement? What is the most important things to be outlined?
So Mary, this is a very involved answer to that question, because there are a lot of things that need to be put in the final order. It's the final agreement. Just so everyone here knows, every court in every state in this wonderful nation of ours speaks through its orders. If something is not in an order, then it's not basically something that needs to be abided by. When courts speak through its orders, though, orders are binding, and it's very difficult to change an order of the court, especially a final judgment. Whether it comes to parenting time, custody, or any type of settlement with respect to money. It's very important that you put into that agreement what you want and how you want to live your life, especially when it comes to parenting time schedule. A lot of times people don't predict what's going to happen down the road. And I always find it very fascinating that courts make us move these cases along quickly when emotions are running high, you're not thinking very thoroughly or logically, and you're expected to know how you want to live your life for the next 10, 15, 20 years when your children are really small. You don't know what schools they're going to go to. You don't know where you want to live. You don't know the parenting time schedule or what activities are going to be involved in. And you have to put all this information in the judgment because you don't know how the other party is going to be 5 or 10 years down the road, especially if they remarry or there's someone else in the mix. And those are the contingencies that a good lawyer will try to plan for that unfortunately many lawyers forget. So my recommendation is to try to plan for as many contingencies as possible without realizing that you're not going to be able to get every single one. But think thoroughly about how you want to live your life, how you want to see parenting time down the road, what schools you may want your children to go to. Because if you think too short-sightedly and those things aren't included, it is very difficult, very expensive and time-consuming to go back to court to change a judgment. So I want to thank you all for being here today. I hope this helped you. I hope this helped answer a lot of your questions. And again, please come back to us. Let us know what other topics you want us to talk about. And we are here for you. The Genesis Legal Group is here for you. We are your resource for family law, for custody, for divorce, prenups, postnups, anything family oriented, because we know that family is the most important thing to each and every one of you. And it is our mission to help you live your best life and to help your children thrive, not only now, but for the rest of their lives. So thank you again for being with us today. And we appreciate each and every one of you very much. Have a great day.
Bye.
Bye.